There are four basic assumptions that I make when I'm teaching Touch to Inform seminars. Touch to Inform seminars was originally designed to introduce concepts from the Feldenkrais method that can be practical applications within your practice. They can be very easily integrated. And the first assumption or concept that I really feel is important is that the word neuromuscular-skeletal system is thrown around, used, but rarely do you really see practitioners working all three equally. And to me, it's very important that we start to think that way. We start to think that the neuromuscular system is one, but it has a skeletal system that's very important. And there's communication between how we move to the brain and then how the brain then in turn tells which muscles to work when and when to hold and when to let go, so to speak. So this idea that how we can work within whatever practice we have, thinking along the lines of the neurological is the emphasis of Touch to Inform. So another assumption, or this is one of the first assumptions, is that the human brain is an organ for learning. You engage the brain and new possibilities evolve. Now, I'm not just saying your brain, but as you're working, can you engage non-verbally your client's brain so that it can do most of the work for you? That's what's interesting. So in other words, how do we do that? Well, one of the big ways is with attention. So sometimes you'll take a limb or you'll take a finger or you'll take a hand and you might start working with it. But if you slow it down and really start to fine-tune your observation through touch, how different is this knuckle from this knuckle? How am I breathing? How is my client breathing? Asking all those questions as you go along. And how is this finger different than this finger? It bends a little differently. So the more you explore and sense differences, the more your client's brain will slow down and sense differences with that. And with that, the brain, you're connecting to your client's brain, and your client's brain then is beginning to sort what feels right, what doesn't feel right. And that's a feed. Instead of a feedback, we call it sort of a feed forward. It's new information, and they have to try and figure out what to do with that. That can be a little confusing. So we encourage you all to learn about this process, learn some of these tools that we offer in Touch to Inform, and then go slowly with your clients. Another Touch to Inform assumption is that the synapses are formed with new and novel intentional actions. And we talk about that. Feldenkrais's idea was that we were born with a blank slate, and we built a map of how we use ourselves, or through the use of ourselves, we build a map. So in other words, the first part of the map that was created is your mouth, your tongue, your lips, because that was the first contact we had with the world. And so this to me is very interesting. Then we put our fingers in our mouths, so the mouth got even more. But then we also learned we had fingers, and then we had toes, and then we started noticing that we had limbs. And that started once there was an intentional action of using your limb to reach for something, to point to something, it became part of the map. Now, what's interesting is as adults, when we stop using it, it disappears from the map. And so as adults, we need those constant reminders that we have a back that can be used. We have 5 fingers, so it's not just the 2 fingers that we do for texting or whatever it is, the thumb and the fingers, so that we do all 5 fingers. But the idea is that map, do we build it, and can we maintain its longevity or its vibrancy? And so we created these patterns through these novel explorations and through using ourselves. But then with neuroplasticity, as I was suggesting, it can be built. We can build it, or we can lose it, or we can build it again, or we can build it in a different way so that it becomes clearer. But the point is, we need all parts working, all the gears working, so that we can work efficiently. And when one gear isn't working, like the back or the middle of the back, I keep talking about the back, or say the idea that the neck isn't connected to the back, so that you're not rounding your whole spine when you lower your head, but just dropping your head to a text neck. Those are the kinds of things that stop or leave holes in your image of action or your mind map, body mind map. And then the 4th assumption is that the actions that are wired together fire together. And that is often seen in, for instance, no pain, no gain. You have a belief somehow that's been wired that if you don't get pain, you're not going to get gain. And yet, if you think about how we learned in the very first years of our lives, there was no trying to get pain to get gain. We were just playing and figuring things out and finding new pathways so that they worked for us. And this is what, again, we're trying to get back to, is helping you and your clients come back to what's right for them, what's right for their structure and their time of life, and what is working in their mind map or their mind-body map, and what isn't, and can we start to enhance that? And the more that gets enhanced, if you start to think this way, then you can begin to start to shift a little bit more their patterns. You start to see the problem within the pattern, and you start to shift the pattern as opposed to just working on the problem. You start to help that pattern get more functional so that the problem gets support and therefore has time to heal. So those are the 4 concepts that I really want to talk about and for this time, and leave it for you to think about.